Shalom from Jerusalem. I'm happy to see you. The briefing will be delivered by General Yaakov Amidror, and I call upon the chair of the Executive Council of the JSS, Danny Lam, to introduce our speaker.
Shalom, everybody. Delighted that you've joined us. The Lam family has been sort of significant sponsors of GIST now for several years, and we were attracted to our support because we think that a body, a study group should show leadership in Israel to convey the thoughts that many of us have about securing Medinat Israel, the state of Israel. And Ephraim has done a superb job in the leadership and supported by many able scholars, the leading one of whom is Major General Yaakov Amidror. The subject that we are going to address is what happened on October 7th and subsequently, one that concerns people everywhere. It concerns fair-minded people everywhere. And of course, the Jewish community is being very affected. I've just been at an event where a Jewish artist in Australia who was doxxed, talks about how the doors are being closed on Jewish artists around the world. So the spin-off of all of this has become terribly, terribly appalling. And it affects us all, and in particular here in Australia, some of the political reactions have been very, very disappointing. But to hear from what's taking place in Israel, it's my pleasure to call on Yaakov to address us. Yaakov, please, if you would kindly take over.
Yeah.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. And I want to begin with the description of the present situation, and then some words about the problems that we are facing towards the next stage. I'm not dealing with politics inside Israel or outside Israel. I'm not an expert for that. It is more about the security, military, strategic situation. We are now acting in two areas inside Gaza. Both of them are areas that we didn't acted in at the past. One is Rafah. We are going in Rafah in two different areas. One, we are pushing towards the center of Rafah from the west, from the east towards the west. It's very slow. We succeeded to move almost 1 million Palestinians from this area because it was clear for us, and if somebody didn't understand it, the Americans made all the efforts to emphasize it, that we should not fight within an area in which there are more than 1.2, 0.3, no one really knows, Palestinians, and they were very skeptic about the ability to move them, but within less than 2 weeks, almost all of them had been moved to safe areas, which were designated by the IDF, in which they have what they need. It's not 5-star hotels, but it's a place in which they are safe. Israel is very cautious not to strike there, and we brought to the area humanitarian help, and they can live there apparently in safe way. The other effort in Rafah, it's not in Rafah itself, it's south of Rafah, what we are calling Philadelphia corridor. There is no any connection to Philadelphia. It's only a name which was on the old code map of the IDF. So we are calling it the Philadelphia corridor. It's the border between Gaza and Egypt. And as it was revealed that it was full of tunnels under the border, through which they succeeded to smuggle in whatever they wanted, in spite of the fact that the Egyptians emphasized again and again that they are controlling it and nothing is coming in, and they clean the area on the other side and blah, 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 blah. It's Egypt. It's Egypt. It means that when the center in Cairo is promising something, you never know how it will be, how far it will be different in the end. In the end, in all the area which controlled by Egypt, but it's closer to Rafah. When we will finish to investigate all the tunnels, we will have a better idea how important was this route of smuggling into the Gaza Strip. And we know that this is a challenge for the future because we have to secure the area and to be sure that in the future it will not be rebuilt as the smuggling hub for Gaza, because that was one of the problems in Gaza, that everything could come in underground and on the ground from Egypt. It's a challenge for the future. I don't know how it will be solved. But anyhow, now we are pushing. And slowly we are taking control of the whole corridor. And Israel will control the border between Gaza and Egypt. And we are pushing parallel to that in Rafah, on the ground and under the ground. And we are doing it very slow, but we are going on. And within, I don't know, a month, Rafah will be under our control. It will take probably another month or two to destroy all the infrastructure there, under the ground and on the ground. I'm saying this based on the experience that we had in Khan Younis. The forces which had been in Khan Younis under the 98th Division are now fighting in Jabalia. Jabalia is part of North Gaza. Theoretically, it should be dismantled by the previous forces which had been there. But what we did in the operation, we bypassed Jabalia from both sides. We didn't go into the center of Jabalia. Jabalia is the biggest refugee camp in North Gaza, and known as the strong point of Hamas for years. I think that we begin to see the beginning of the change in Gaza. We told the people of Jabalia 14 hours before we moved in that this is the plan of the IDF, and we are fighting now in Jabalia without presence of civilians. Almost all the civilians left the area in which we are fighting. Now it is the third part of the camp. Within days we will move to the other 2/3 of the camp. But it is very significant that in this area of the where we found, by the way, about 7 bodies of kidnapped Israelis, no civilians. The Palestinians understand, A, that when we declare that we are coming, we are serious about it, and B, when they move to the safe areas which have been designated by the IDF, they are safe. And the IDF is keeping its promise not to strike them. So they move, and it's helped us very much to fight inside the Jabalia. As I said, it is mainly fighting under the ground, and this is why it is very slow. And we found under the ground 7 bodies of hostages which had been killed in the 7th of October. It's a combination of sensitivity of the forces on the ground and intelligence which was collected from the data which was brought to Israel from all the headquarters in the north at the first stage of the war, and interrogation of Hamas terrorists which are in our hands. This is the situation in Gaza. It's slow, but it is going towards the direction that we decided to at the beginning of the war. It means we are going to finish the first stage of dismantling the system of Hamas in the area within, I don't know, 2-3 months. What is the meaning of it? Just to give you example of what does it mean to dismantle the Hamas system and to have operational control on the area. At the first stage of the war, we understood that Shifa Hospital is one of the centers of Hamas, and we wanted to reach the place and to destroy whatever they have under the hospital. But we knew about the underground center under the hospital. It took us almost a month, and in Gaza, North Gaza, were at that time 2.5 divisions, meaning 25, something like that, forces, people. Each division is theoretically 2 or 3 brigades. Each brigade is 4 battalions, so you can calculate it. And we reached the hospital after a month, and with 2.5 divisions. We pulled out all our forces from the north. And a month later, we understood that Shifa is becoming again the center of Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. So what we ordered forces to go back to Shifa. In this time, it was 2.5 battalions, 10 times less than the first stage of the war. They took them less than 30 minutes to reach the hospital, and not even one shot was shot on them in the hallway from the border to the hospital. In the hospital itself, we fought against 1,000 terrorists. We killed 200. We captured 500, and 300 probably succeeded to go somewhere. But it gives you the difference between the first stage in which we went in to dismantle the Hamas, and the second stage in which we use the full operational control that we have after dismantling the system to go for another operation. The system doesn't work, so they didn't have those who can give them the information that the IDF is on its way. They didn't have a system that can move forces from our area to another to try to block the forces, and so on and so forth. And by the way, the second time, we didn't have to fight under the ground because we destroyed the underground facility in the first stage. This is the situation that we want to reach in the whole area of the Gaza Strip. As I said, it will take a few months, and then we'll begin the second stage, which is cleaning up the whole Gaza Strip. This is a very, very slow motion operations based on intelligence. If anywhere a regrouping of Hamas will be identified, going back to all the data that we captured to see all the facilities under the ground and to go again and to destroy as many of them or as possible. We don't have enough TNT in Israel to destroy all the tunnels, but if there is a few kilometers of tunnel without electricity, no one can live in, because you cannot live in these tunnels without pushing oxygen in. So we have to understand what we are destroying and what we are leaving, because we cannot do all of them, but in a way that it cannot be used in the future against for regrouping or to build any new capabilities. What we want at the end is to be in a situation in which the whole Gaza Strip is like Area A in the West Bank, in which Israel doesn't have any presence at the time, every day. But if we have information, we know how to go in and what should be done. Can it sometimes we are doing it with the regular forces, sometimes with special forces, sometimes with the F-16, which strike with a half-a-ton bomb to destroy something. It will be very flexible how the reaction will be. We have two principles. One, we will have a perimeter along the border that will be no man's land. No one can reach the fence from the Palestinian side. We didn't make it before the war. It was a mistake. And the IDF can go in and out based on its understanding of the situation. It doesn't need any decision of the political level. It's a military issue. And that's what we want to reach in Gaza. The question is, okay, who will be responsible for all the civilian issues? We didn't decide it yet. We tried to build very slowly, very, very, very slowly, within the locals, to identify people who will be ready to take the responsibility. They have to be secured by us because they're afraid from Hamas. And that will be very much connected to the ability of Israel to destroy the military capability of Hamas. The more we succeed to destroy and to kill Hamas members, the more are the chances that locals will be ready to take responsibility. It's a gamble, but it doesn't cost too much, so we have to do it. And the real day after is not now. It is a year and a half from now. It will be only after finishing the second stage of cleaning Gaza. By the way, in 2002, it took us, we made an operation to regain control on the Area 8, which were, according to us, are supposed to be Palestinians' control only. And we understood that all the terrorists are coming from Area 8. Remember, we had 122 people killed in Israel by terrorists coming from the West Bank in the spring of 2002, and we went after the event in Erev Pesach in Netanya to a big operation in the West Bank. It took us after the operation. It was a short operation of months. After the operation, 4 years to clean the area. Here, because it's different circumstances and the war is different, probably it will take a year, but it will be then ongoing operations, as will be needed by our ability to identify the regrouping of Hamas after that. By the way, during the war, we are doing it all the time in the West Bank, very low from the publicity point of view. You don't hear about it, but the IDF is acting every night in the West Bank. We arrested 4,500 terrorists up till now. We killed almost 500. It's a huge number. And we just finished 2 days ago, an operation in which we were in Jenin refugee camps more than 40 hours. We pulled out all our forces. And today, a little force came in again because we have a new information about regrouping of a cell of terrorists in Jenin. So we don't hesitate. If there is a need, we are coming, we are going out. This is the situation that we want to build in Gaza. It is not going to be easy, not at all. But as I told you, in the West Bank, it took us 4 years after the operation. And here, I hope that it will be shorter. But that should be done. And of course, the main problem is that unlike the West Bank, there is no any civilian responsible organization that take care for the education, the police, the electricity, whatever. In the West Bank, we have the Palestinian Authority, which does not exist in Gaza. They had been expelled or killed or both by the Hamas in 2006. The third front is in the north, and I believe that the main and the more problematic decision to make in the future is not about the day after in Gaza. This is less important. is what to do in Lebanon. The Hezbollah decided not to join in full scale to the war, but they begin to, they try at the beginning to bring Palestinians and to help them to infiltrate to Israel. After 7 attempts that didn't succeed, they don't do it anymore, maybe in the future. And since then, they are launching rockets, missiles, anti-tank missiles into Israel. They destroy hundreds of buildings in the north. We have 80,000 Israelis evacuated or evacuate themselves or by the government into hotels in Israel. There are refugees in Israel. And they ask, okay, till when? We have to go back. It's the 1st of September is the beginning of the year for children. We don't have a good answer. We don't have a good answer because we decided not to fight parallel in 2 fronts. And we are still very busy in Gaza. There are 2 divisions which are still very busy in Gaza. And we have to decide what to do. There are 3 options. One is a war, very devastating, very problematic, very challenging. Hezbollah is stronger than Hamas, much stronger. Hezbollah has the capability to launch missiles and rockets into the home front of Israel, and so on and so forth. This is one option. The second one is that the Americans and the French will achieve a diplomatic solution, then they will push by this agreement with the Lebanese government, Hezbollah will be pushed to a little bit to the north, so the danger of assaulting the border like in 7th of October will not be there. They can launch rockets and missiles, not any tank missiles, but other missiles they can. And we will wait, and we will see what will happen. The third option is we don't have an agreement. We don't want to go to war now. We want to be better prepared in the future. So we will double our forces in the north. Instead of a battalion, will be a brigade in every point. We will put in the city of Kiryat Shmona and all the settlements around it, the kibbutzim and the moshavim. We will put military forces, so they will be secure that even if Hezbollah succeeds to surprise us, the forces on the ground will be so strong that they cannot achieve anything. And probably they will not do it when they identify that the amount of soldier in the area, and to add artillery and to enhance the defense and so on and so forth, and to convince the population of the north to go back because now they are secure, not because we have an agreement or that we pushed Hezbollah, but because the IDF is very, very strong in the area. It will be a very expensive solution, but for the time being, that's probably the only one which might convince the population to come back. But if that will be the solution, no question that in the future we will have to go to a preemptive war to try to destroy the military capabilities of Hezbollah. It's 10 times more complicated, more challenging than Hamas, even if you just look at the numbers. And they're much better prepared. But there is one big but that people do not understand. In the last, 10 years, the IDF prepared itself for a war in Lebanon. Everything was for that. In a way, maybe that is a fact that should be taken into account when we speak about the huge failure of the 7th of October. Everyone's eyes were in the north, not in the south. It's not justified anything, of course, but it's explain you where the IDF was. So if we be a war with Hezbollah, the IDF is much better prepared to this war than to the war in Gaza in the 7th of October. All from the intelligence point of view, from the targeting point of view, from the preparations of the forces from all the arrangements that we did inside Israel and on the other side of the border. Everything is because we prepared ourselves so that war, not a war in the south. So this is now the situation. The Americans didn't stop the continuation of the flow of munition to Israel. There was one shipment which was stopped, and that was more a signal than a decision to stop everything. You know, they have their interest in politics as well. I don't want to go to that, but all the other munition which had been understood or agreed that they will provide us, they are continuing to provide. They have their own problem because of Ukraine and so on and so forth. They need to keep some red lines for themselves, and the tension in Taiwan is very significant. So this is the situation on the ground. If you have any question, I'm more than happy to answer. I don't know to answer questions about the 7th of October because this is in the middle of investigation. We don't have all the details. When we will have all the details, probably it will be published.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, Yaakov. The American factor, you know, Israel's always been saying they'll be continuing with Rafah. How do you see the American factor? The other thing is the vacuum. When the north was cleared, of Hamas, but they're coming back. So was that expected, or how do you see that? Or will that be the cleanup that you're talking about later?
The Americans didn't like the idea that we are going to Rafah. What they say, that they have other ideas. They didn't have any other idea. No one in Israel knows about a real smart idea which the Americans have and we don't know. And second, they were very worried about the war in an area in which there are more than 1 million Palestinians. By the way, every day there were 250,000 and million were added to the area. They came from the north and from the center. And they didn't believe that we can move them. And what happened is, surprisingly for them, almost 1 million Palestinians moved from Rafah in the last few days before we went in. And we went in very cautiously because of the American factor, as you call it. But we did it, and we are continuing to push in Rafah, and we will reach the center of Rafah within a few weeks, and the operation will take, I don't know, 2 or 3 months. But we are very determined to dismantle all the Hamas forces in Rafah. And I think that the Americans now are accepting it because they saw that we succeeded to move the Palestinians. What they are worried now is about the humanitarian help which will have to flow into the area and to help the Palestinians to survive. By the way, there is no famine in Gaza, unlike what was described in many places. Here and there, probably there is missing of food, but basically in Gaza, there are enough water, enough food, and the flow of the humanitarian help is continuing. Now we have a new capability to take ships with food coming from Cyprus to the artificial port that the Americans build in Gaza. And I believe that we will make Gaza. We will make Rafah. Slowly, we will dismantle all the forces of Gaza. What was the second question? The north. We built a corridor called Netzarim Corridor, going from Israel to the sea, separating the north part of Gaza from the center and the south. The North Gaza is now isolated from the from the south, and no Palestinian is moving from the south to the north. There are in north part of Gaza remain from the more than 1 million people which lived there before the war, around 250,000. So if there is any regrouping of Hamas in the north, it's not because people moved from the south to the north, it's because it's a process within the people which remain, including terrorists, which remain in the north. We didn't kill all the terrorists. We cannot. It will take time. At the end, all of them probably will be dead, but it will take time. Or prisoners of war. It will take time. And what you read about regrouping in the north is not because they succeed to infiltrate into the north. Probably some of them succeed, but it's very few. And most of what is happening in the north is about the population which remain there at the first stage.
Any other question?
Yes, Greg.
Yeah, please. It's very convincing, Amidror.
Like you say, it's a very, very big, long job, and takes time, takes consistency, and it takes bravery. And the newspapers who want all this rubbish fixed in weeks and months are crazy. Anyway, it's fantastic what's happening in a very serious.
I'm from time to time. I'm briefed by the commanders on the ground, the division commander, and I look at the newspaper and I see the huge gap between the description of the newspapers and the description of the commanders on the ground. And I think that one of the problems is that they mix between the military situation on the ground and their political view. They want to give the readers the impression of failure because it is going directly to the government. Here, the media in Israel is very determined that it should be changed. But when I spoke a few days ago with the commander of the 98th Division in Jabalia. He feels very well about the achievement of his division and what are the prospects in the next few weeks. He emphasized that most of the fighting is done in combination between on the ground and under the ground, and to synchronize it takes time. And it's very complicated. But he feels that they have much better capability to deal with the underground threat than 2 or 3 months ago. They succeeded because we brought to this job the special forces, and we have a huge amount of special forces. And they are much more flexible. They can buy technology out of the formal process, and we are fighting under the ground. They are not fighting under the ground. They are running up. So it's a combination of a war under the ground and with a lot of firepower for the Air Force and so on. But it is at the same time, at the same time, literally the same time, should be synchronized with the efforts under the ground. And this is a new phenomenon in the world. We learned it slowly at the beginning of the war. Now we have much better capabilities to deal with this combination, but it's very slow. He understands it. He said it is very slow.
General, what are Israel doing with all the terrorists that have arrested? Because obviously there's a lot more now than prior to the war, with the accommodation and also the interrogation. Are they getting benefits out of the interrogations, and do they have the capacity to hold all these prisoners?
Good question. We build a special area in which we are holding them, and the interrogation is a very important part of our ability to bring intelligence to the forces on the ground. Part of our achievements to bring home 7 bodies of hostages was based on these interrogations and all information which was captured by our forces in the first stage. We have a special team which is going through the information, not far from Tel Aviv, and there is the new camp in which we are keeping all the Palestinians which had been captured, and the interrogation is part of the process. Yes, we have a lot of information from that.
Can I ask you, notwithstanding perhaps the attempt by the media to present what you said earlier, is it the case that the people of Israel have got the patience to support this war effort?
I think that if the army can show success, meaning that every week we have more gain on the ground and we bring home more hostages, very sadly only bodies, and the more that we are killing commanders of Hamas, we are now trying to understand if we succeeded to kill last week the brigade commander of Rafah. We don't know. We know that his headquarters was attacked. I don't know if he was there. The more that if we succeed, and the idea of succeed to show achievements, the legitimacy will be there. The main pressure now is from 2 directions. One is, okay, what about the hostages? The more that we are waiting, more of them will be dead. And we know the number of those which are dead there, but we don't know the number of those who are still alive. It is any number between 40 and 90. We don't know. This is one pressure, the hostages. It's huge in Israel. You can understand the pressure that the families are putting and so on. And Hamas understands it, and he says that unless we stop the war and evacuate Gaza, will not be exchange of hostages with the terrorists. And I don't see Israel agree to stop the war and to evacuate Gaza, not in this stage. The second pressure is kind of an American and dreamers in Israel. The Americans are saying, guys, stop the war, have an agreement with Saudi Arabia, and show a vision for a Palestinian state. Not tomorrow, but for the long run. Here people are saying, we have an opportunity here to have a relations with Saudi Arabia. It's a huge achievement. It might bring the whole Muslim world into the relations with Israel. So it was to stop the war to have this agreement. And it's another pressure from another direction. In some cases, the same people who are taking both issues together and saying, guys, it will save the hostages and will give us the Saudi Arabia relations, so it's also stopping the war. My private view that we should not. And the first imperative for the future of Israel and for Israel's position in the world and in the Middle East is to finish the job with Hamas and to show everyone that any organization will conduct such an operation against Israel will be destroyed. It is not about Hamas now, it's about the position of Israel in the Middle East and in the world. And this is why my view is that we have to go with the priority that we put at the beginning, is to destroy the military capability of Hamas and its ability to act as an organization, to function as an organization in the Gaza Strip. And for that, we have to take its leadership to continue to clean the area and so on and so forth. And then relations with Saudi Arabia will wait. I don't know till when, but it will wait.
The call up for Miluim, is that being continued to be supported in the very high percentages that it was earlier on?
Yes, not in the same percentage as at the beginning, because people are exhausted after, within 7 months, some of them had been in Miluim 4 months. I mean, your business, your family. So it's not the same percentage of as it was in the first stage, but still it's very high. And some, now it's very much depends where you came from and where you. And in some of the Miluim units, there are very strong spirit and readiness to continue. In some, less.
I want to Yaakov for a moment. One is, how long will it take to get these groups of people from the south and the north back to their homes without them becoming disenfranchised and give up and relocate, actually, so that there is an emptiness in the borders? How long can... That's a tough challenge now.
Very, very good question. In the south, it's different. In the south, the government allocated 17 billion shekel. There is an institution which called Tkuma, which this is his job, to plan and to bring all the people back home. There are 3 kibbutzim which will take at least 2 years to rebuild. Nir Oz, Kfar Aza, and Nachal. It will take years, at least 2 years. All the others are slowly rebuilt, and probably 60–70% of those who left the area came back to their homes. And I believe that in September, when the new year for the education system will be open, the 1st of September in Israel, it will leave alone the 3 kibbutzim which will not come back because we have to rebuild them. I think that 90% of the people will be back. In the south, it's easier because they can see the end, the light at the end of the tunnel. The more that we are acting in Gaza, the less they are under threat. Now Hamas lost its ability to assault. They can still launch rockets, missiles in very low numbers, but still can do it, and is doing it from time to time. But the hope is very clear, and the situation is very clear, and the money is there to help. And they have, the whole area will be totally different for the better. Within, if you come now, look at it, go through all the area, and you will come within 3–5 years, you will see paradise. No question from our point of view. I know the guy who is responsible for Tkuma. He's a very active guy, very practical. He will do it. And there is the money. The money is there waiting for them. They finished the first phase of planning, and now they are moving slowly to build. In the north, it's much more problematic because before we solve the security situation, no one will move them. And unlike in the south, there was not any assault of Hezbollah. They destroy few hundred buildings by launching rockets, missiles, and mainly anti-tank missiles that we cannot intercept. It's very low, it's very fast. And the sight of line in the north is very easy. They just launch it and destroy it. If a new cornet is the name of the missile, a new cornet is coming to a house, the house will be destroyed. I mean, you have to rebuild it, or even to destroy everything and to build it from scratch. So that will be two-phase solution. One is the security one that I described to you, what are the options. And then we will have to make Tkuma for the north, to allocate. Here we don't need 17 billion, but 10 for sure. And to rebuild these places, in some places, even to move it to a little bit lower, that they will not so exposed to the other side, to Lebanon. The old notion in Israel was that the settlements are part of the defensive system. We didn't keep it in the last few years. We generate the ability of those places to defend themselves. We didn't trust the civilians. It was a huge mistake, and we will have to go back to, at least in the north, to the old system in which they can defend themselves. We have to build a system, you have to provide them with weapon system and so on and so forth. And maybe to change some location of some building that they will not be so exposed to the other side. And at the end, don't tell anyone, we will have to go to war in Lebanon. If not now, in the future. That we cannot live under this threat anymore. Today, it's very inconvenient after the war in Gaza and so on and so forth, but if we need it, we know how to do it. It will be a very costly war. But if we will have the ability to postpone it, we should do it. I don't know if we have the capability to do it because the pressure inside Israel, but if we can, it's better to wait for another 2 years.
Can you comment on Iran and how that's affecting things at the moment?
Again, I thought, look, the Iranians are there from the beginning. The Iranians has a strategy. One leg is the nuclear capability. It's another story. And the other leg is to build ring of fire by proxies around Israel. The idea of the Iranians was to build proxies all over the Middle East. They have the Houthis proxies in Yemen. Instead of dealing directly with Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, they deal through the Houthis. They have proxies in Iraq, because Iraq is very important for Iran. So they want to be in a situation in which they can influence the political situation. They have proxies strong proxies in Iraq. Around Israel, they build a ring of fire of proxies. Hezbollah is the strongest element. Islamic Jihad and Hamas in Gaza. They try to do the same in the West Bank, and this is why we are very active and we are going in and out. And in the last year, they try even harder to push weapon systems, munition, and money to the West Bank to build their own supporter there, and we work very hard to prevent it. And they try to build the last element, they try to build independent Iranian forces combined with militias that they brought from outside in Syria. In the last 12 years, we are bombing in Syria every week. Why? We want to prevent them from building this capability in Syria. We succeeded to postpone probably 75% of it, but 25% of their plan had been materialized. And this is the ring of fire. The idea was that they can attack Israel from close, from the borders, very close to Israel, when Iran itself is 1,500 kilometers away. There is no any involvement of Iran directly with Israel. No one knows who did it, but in many newspapers, it's written that Israel succeeded to kill the leadership of Al-Quds forces in a consulate of Iran in Damascus. Al-Quds forces are the long arm of the regime to make all the operations in the Levant, in Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Palestine, and the west part of Iraq. They are responsible for all these operations, including the building of the ring of fire around Israel, and enhancing the capabilities of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, and so on and so forth. They are very much involved in decision-making, the process with Hezbollah. And all of them had been killed by unknown Air Force in a building which is nearby the Iranian embassy, and they claim that it is a consulate. No diplomat was killed or injured, but it's still. And the Iranians had to make a decision how they react. Will they expose themselves or not? And the decision was to show Israel what can they do to deter Israel. 300 projectiles had been launched into Israel in the 14th of May. And April, sorry. And a coalition of America, France, Britain, and Jordan was very active on the skies of Jordan, succeeded to intercept all the drones, and the Israeli Air Force succeeded to intercept all the cruise missiles. And Israel, with Arrow and Americans from the ships, from Aegis capabilities that they have in the Mediterranean, we succeeded to intercept most of the ballistic missiles. 90% was done by us, 10% by the Americans. And the whole attack was a huge failure. But, and the but is very important, the Iranians showed that they were ready to take a risk, that they have the capabilities. And next time, without the coalition, the situation in Israel will be much more problematic. In spite of the fact that all the systems, the Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, all of them worked fantastically. Really, it was amazing. David Sling and the Arrow both of them were tested first time in real operation and worked wonderfully. The combination was new. David Sling for itself we used in the past. Arrow was very little experience before this operation. So the success was very impressive of our defensive capabilities. Then we decided to react by destroying one SA-300, which is the most modernized anti-missile system that the Iranians have, in an area which is very close to a nuclear facility, to make the signal very clear. We can reach any point in Iran, and you cannot stop us. And if we decide, we will destroy all the other facilities. I don't know what lessons the Iranians will learn from this reaction. And the meaning of it is clear. We don't want a war, so we didn't react with 300 projectiles. But we have the ability, if will be needed, to destroy many places in Iran. And the Iranians have to take it into their account when they make the decision. The Iranians will not stop supporting those elements in the Middle East, which, from their point of view, have the ability and the obligation to fight against Israel, including Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, whoever. So we will face Iran in the future, and if you want, the combination of Hezbollah and Iran is the main challenge for Israel in the future.
Ephraim, I can see this gentleman, Peter Cooper, has had his hand up for about an hour.
So
politely waiting, guys. Quick question, Jacob, just in terms of going into Rafah, I mean, how much detail does the IDF have on categorization of Hamas human resources? There's like a number of categories I'd call out, full-time soldiers, administrators, collaborators, volunteers, sympathizers. There's a whole range of Hamas, I guess, support, not to mention all those that kind of rush from the north down into the south. I mean, how does the IDF sort of distinguish from the average citizen through these other categories of Hamas?
When we fight under the ground, it's very easy. Everyone under the ground is a terrorist. On the ground is almost impossible to identify if he's not carry weapon. If he's carry a Kalashnikov or RPG, it's immediately identified as a terrorist. If he doesn't, there is no way to identify. This is one of our problems. A guy is going from his house, he's dressed with civilian. He's going out, he's entering a building. In the first stage of the building, there are friends of him. They're taking their Kalashnikovs, RPGs, whatever. They go out, they kill 2 Israelis. They go. Now they are terrorists. If they will be identified, they will be killed. They are going back to the house, putting the weapon inside and going up to the street. They are civilians. There is no any way to identify. Think about someone who has responsibility for launching rockets into Israel. Yes, somewhere in the field, 10 rockets covered with plastic and some sand. And he decided to launch them. Either he got an order or decided this is the best time to launch them. He's going out with civilian clothes. He has some food in his basket and a telephone, civilian. He's going to the place in which there are the 10 rockets, looking around, and for 30 seconds he's becoming a terrorist. He's connecting the phone to the wire coming out from the rockets, cover it, and after 30 seconds he's totally civilian. He's going back home. He's coming home, he's drinking coffee, he's calling the phone, and the 10 rockets will be launched. Is he civilian? Is he terrorist? Is he both? I don't know. This is why it is so almost impossible to identify who is terrorist in Gaza. Of course, we don't know the number of supporters. This is endless. We don't know. We know that formally Hamas had, at the beginning of the war, between 35 to 40,000 members. Many of them, or almost all of them, have weapons at home. They have their own command and control system and so on. When we speak about dismantling Hamas military capability, one of the most important elements is to kill the commanders to destroy the command and control system. So even if they have a Kalashnikov at home, they cannot be organized by someone to do something in big numbers because the system doesn't work. How we keep it in the future, a good question. You need very good intelligence for
that. Peter, you have a question, please?
I've got a follow-up question. How do you, with the trends in, I guess, Israeli and global opinion on what's going on in Gaza, I mean, and your comments before about Iran and Hezbollah, I mean, is there any argument for appeasement or détente diplomacy, leaving aside politics and that opinion, going slow only plays into the advantage of Hamas or Iran? Is that how you see it? I mean, what's the role for alternative non-military solutions?
In this
when
stage,
time is against the IDF and Israel?
in this moment, I don't see any substitute to the efforts to destroy Hamas military capability. It will be a huge mistake, huge. And it's not about our security, it's about our position in the world. If Hamas get out from this war with his leadership survives the war, and he begin to regroup in Gaza, and within a year we will find Hamas again there, it's the end of Israel's position as a strong state with intelligence advantages and technological huge capabilities. The whole story will demise. There is only one way to prevent it, is to show the world that an organization which acted as in barbarian ways as Hamas did will not survive. And if the world does not understand it, we will have to act against the will of the world. And this is, from my point of view, it's a first priority before Lebanon, in spite of the fact that Hezbollah is much stronger. Logically, when you have such a combination, you begin with Hezbollah. You are very strong, you're very fresh, you go on Hezbollah, and only then you go on Hamas, it's weaker organization. But after the operation, in the 7th of October, we cannot be in a situation in which Hamas is surviving. It's not about revenge. It's a very cold assessment of the situation in the future and what is needed to repair the Israeli situation on the Middle East.
And so I'd just like to ask Ephraim one more question because Amidror is so busy. Just one quick question. What is, touch the comment of A, the economy, and B, tourism, when you have a country now that really is officially at war, certainly look 3, 4, 5 years in advance, got so much on the plate, it's hard to digest. But so can you just comment on the economy and tourism?
I was asked by Tikva Fund to come to New York to speak with their supporters. I landed 6 o'clock in the morning and I took off 10 o'clock at night. I was 16 hours on the ground in Manhattan just to speak with these guys. And the last question was in Manhattan, very nice, crowded meeting. And they asked what they can do for Israel. That was the last question that I was asked. I say, we need from the jury in America 2 different things. One is to keep, by putting pressure on their politicians, to keep the window of freedom to act open for a longer time. Why? As you explained, it's going to be long. And the second one is not connected at all to the politics in America. It's about investing in the Israeli economy, not to buy, I'm quoting myself, not to buy an apartment in Jerusalem that will be empty because you are coming 3 times a year, but to invest in the Israeli market. The big test of Israel is to revive the economy. Foreigners are less investing in Israel because they are not ready to take the risk of investing in a country, in a war. In many areas like, software and so on, people continue to buy in Israel because we continue to produce and new ideas are coming from Israel and that continues. But what is about the real economy, manufacturing, tourism, and so on and so on, the burden is huge. I gave in public 6 elements that should be examined before a decision about Lebanon will be taken. One is the number of the amount of munition that we have. Do we have enough? The second one was the Israeli economy that should be considered before you go to a new war for another year at least. And this is an answer that the experts will have to answer to themselves and to decide, and the government will have to decide if it has the capability to take the economic burden for another year. For that, you need a very smart leadership in the economy. I'm not sure that we have it. Because it is more about politics, unlike the army, which is more about professional decision. Here, it's more about politics because everyone has an interest. And I hope that the prime minister will take all the decision on himself, and the meaning will be less politics. I'm not naive. Will be politics, yeah, no question, but probably less politics and more decisions should be taken economically. But if you ask me what is my expectation from the Jews around the world, is to invest in Israeli economy, and it's very hard. I have two startups that it's very, very, very hard to get investment in, and it's not because it's the issue is the level of confidence in the startup itself. It's about the investments around the world are not ready to take the risk of investing in a country in a war.
I think if I can make a comment, if the Israeli government at a certain time start talking to the Jews, the diaspora, about investing in businesses, not only startups, but businesses, operational businesses, weaponry, stuff like this, so that people will say, okay, don't buy a flat, I'm going to buy 200,000 shares in that business. This is putting in the best technology for this, that, and the other, not to be sold off to somebody in Silicon Valley. It has to have a commercial bent to it so that people will invest in an organization that they know is stable and remain there, not to be sold off in 5 years.
Yeah, I agree with you. And weaponry, by the way, became number 2 export investment in incoming foreign money for Israel. Both the governmental companies, Rafael and IEA, and the private one, Elbit, are selling enormously in Israel and out of Israel. By the way, Finland decided to buy David Sling. The Germans decided to buy Arrow 3. Now the problem is how to produce it when we are using all the interceptions for ourselves. But this is something that we will find a solution to.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yaakov. And I just want to pick up on Greg's cue about investing. I want our supporters to invest into the activity of GIS, of our institutes, so that we can continue to grow and contribute towards strategic thought in Israel. We have a budget of about 2 million shekel. We need to double that. So for those of you who are online and also others that you can speak to talk about the important value of supporting Jerusalem Institute. I want to thank Yaakov for a very interesting hour spent together.
You're most welcome.
And several of the people who raised questions that we're all interested in, and to Ephraim for putting this together. Ephraim, Toda Rabba.
It's our duty to speak to people all over the world, and particularly to the Jews, and we are trying to do it. And we are, of course, as I say, we are the intellectual ammunition for Israel's national security. And I think that this is an important function that we try to perform as good as we can. So shalom from Jerusalem to everybody, and thank you again to Yaakov Amidror, General Amidror, who is Anne and Greg Rosander, Senior Fellow at JISS.
Oh, very grateful. Thanks. Thank you, buddy. Beautiful. Thank you.
All the
Thank
best
you.
to all of you, and
תודה רבה, להתראות.
for better
תודה
news.
רבה. חג שמח.